Hey guys, before the video starts, apologies if I look like a zucchini, but real quickly, I just want to announce that my tech show has officially merged its way over to TikTok. You can now access my short episode of TikToks and short episodes of Technoid, not just on YouTube Shorts, but now on TikTok. So if you have a TikTok account and if you want to watch more episodes of Technoid and some exclusives, follow me on TikTok at Technoid01. Link will be in the comment section and in the description to follow. Alrighty, fanboys and fangirls, now that Samsung's event is over, the S22 Ultra is out there, the next big thing up is the Google Pixel 7 and 7 Pro. And today we've got our first reports coming from some code names found inside of Android 13 and some possible hints at a future Tensor chip. We'll discuss all the details. Also on today's episode, Apple is exploring the option of a foldable MacBook. Now, before you say anything, let's go over the rumors before you say a word, because you're gonna wanna hear this. And lastly, we have some updates on the AirPods Max 2, which is reportedly in development but won't be released for another year or so. But we have reports of where it's going and what it's gonna do differently. All of that on today's episode, so don't touch your dial, don't change anything, maybe change your underwear, because Technoid starts right now. Alrighty, first story up, the main story of this episode, the Google Pixel 7 and 7 Pro. Now, as you know, this is a cycle we go through. Every time there's a new device that we've covered, the next big thing to come is, of course, the next flagship from another company. We've done this with Apple, now we've just finished Samsung, so naturally the next thing to follow is the Google Pixel. And this year is no different, because we have some reports of early development of the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro and future hints at the 6a and the upcoming Pixel Watch. So let's break down the reports. According to the article, in the developer codes found in Android 13, we could see that the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro have been discovered alongside a Pixel 6 Pro with a second generation Tensor chip. According to the evidence, it seems that apparently, according to this developer's preview, that Google's second generation Tensor chip is set to debut with the 7 and 7 Pro, which we obviously know that every tech company that has a new chip does. But in this case, the reason why it's being tested with the 6 and 6 Pro is for early development. So don't get your hopes up that they're gonna put a new chip in an older phone. They're gonna put it in the 7 and 7 Pro, but they just use it as an early development platform so that way they can expand the chip, see what it's capable of once they put it in future hardware devices. Taking a dive deeper, we also see that we are launching closer to the 6a and Pixel Watch. According to the developer's preview, that the 7 and 7 Pro will of course initially be alongside the base board or developer board, so that means that they will focus more heavily on the 6a and the Pixel Watch before they market the 7 and 7 Pro inside of the developer's code based on what everything is saying. Sounds a little confusing, I'll break it down at the end. Lastly, of course, it says here that there is a new release of a modem number that is unlike anything in the Exynos modem department or a Qualcomm series. So is it possible that Google is developing their own modem? That's what we're gonna have to wait and find out for the second generation Tensor chip. But then lastly, talking about the 7 and 7 Pro, the main juice of this story, the code names have been found and they are linked towards Google I/O's conference. Now, the reason why they're linked is because, of course, with Google I/O in the summer, we usually get a hint of what the devices are going to be capable of by software. So basically, all that we're going to see now is the early development stages plus a second generation Tensor chip. And in regards to the 6a and Pixel Watch, it seems that Google is going to focus first on those. Either they're going to be released at I/O, maybe they'll be released alongside something else. We don't know exactly the dates, but based on the developer's preview, we can see that Google is experimenting with the second generation and of course, everything will then start to fall in place. So these are the early reports, so please do take these with a grain of salt. Now that we've broken it down, let me give you my final thoughts before we move on to the next story. I think that the second generation Tensor chip is a good idea. I like the idea that they're experimenting it with a current generation Pixel 6 Pro. So that way you can see what the chip is capable of, see ways to improve it, and then of course when you put it into the 7 and 7 Pro, then of course you pair with Android 13. using the developer's preview. Another thing is that I also like that Google is focusing more on the 6A and the watch as we get closer, and using the developer's preview based on the information that was given, we can see that the 7 and 7 Pro ultimately will just be a more modern 6 and 6 Pro if the reports are to be true. And then lastly, to round it all off about the 7 and 7 Pro, I am interested in the modem because a lot of people don't talk about the modems. Everybody just kind of doesn't even know what it is. But for a while, we've had Exynos modems, we've had Qualcomm modems, and maybe Apple with their in-house modems coming soon. So we'll see what Google is doing on their side, if they're going to have full control of their hardware, because they already have the Tensor chip, so we'll see what the second generation brings. But if they have the modem in lock, then we can see where Google's going to do with customization for their device. So that's everything we know now about the 7 and 7 Pro. The picture is starting to be seen, but we have to keep up to date with it, so I will cover if we have any more news, and I'll make sure we get it on the next episode or future episodes. Alrighty, story number 2, let's talk about this foldable MacBook. Now, according to Ross Young, who has been very, very reliable, ladies and gentlemen, according to Ross Young, it seems that Apple is exploring options with a 20-inch all-screen foldable MacBook. Seems that they want to go into the foldable markets, but rather than going the tablet and smartphone route, which we will discuss in just a second, they seem to decide that they would like to utilize a product that has more space and more areas of ground to cover, and that is, of course, as you know, the MacBook. Now that would be a very cool, interesting idea, as you can fold it, have a nice big screen to body ratio, and also it does make the perfect foldable size, but the hardware inside of that, plus the cooling, chips, the batteries, yeah, you better make sure they're developing it very good. But on the flip side, with regards to the iPhone, it seems that Apple still isn't prioritizing a foldable iPhone until 2025. Now, that doesn't mean that they aren't actively developing something. According to Ross Young, they are exploring options in ways to make a foldable iPhone, but they're just gonna push it to 2025, which I think is a safe bet, because by then the foldable market has fully been expanded, companies are allowed to do what they wanna do, and then of course the technology will have advanced. So I'm okay with that. And honestly, Samsung continuing their stride with foldables can help bring market share into the picture, so that's not a bad thing. So overall, looking at the rumors, Apple is exploring foldables, but we'll see what happens when it comes time to launch. And the last story, let's talk about the AirPods Max 2. Now, according to John Prosser and a patent report, it seems that the next generation AirPods Max 2 are going to give a semi-redesigned touch control system to the headphones. Now, for full disclosures, the original design of these headphones were talked about by Prosser himself on Front Page Tech. Basically, the original idea was they were going to have touch controls on the side of the ear cups, but because it wasn't working exactly the way that they wanted it to work, Apple instead put physical controls last minute, and that's why we have the digital crown and a physical button as well. Now, they work pretty fine, it's seamless, I have no problem with the physical buttons, but according to this patent, inside of the headphone's ear cup, whether it's going to be made out of aluminum or some kind of fabric mesh or whatever, touch-sensitive glass, I don't know. But it seems during in this patent that we can see touch-sensitive gestures will be enabled on the side of each ear cup. So that way you can have physical controls by tapping the ear cups once, tapping it twice to skip, 3 times of course if you want to move your music. And then lastly, talking about the headphones themselves, you can also invoke Siri, turn the volume up and down, more room for more controls. Now this is a very cool idea, but the question is, when is this going to launch? Well, according to other reports, it seems that the AirPods Max 2 are not really on the radar as of 2022. However, though, reports are indicating that we could see a newer AirPods Max in 2023. Now this is a good idea because the AirPods Max have been selling pretty well, honestly. I thought the $550 price tag was gonna be too much, but consumers love it, they're financing it with the Apple Card, and people are buying it. So it's a good idea to let them play out, sell out the inventory, see how much more they can push with software, because even though the headphones are great, I still feel they're limited, so give them more time to be developed in software, firmware updates, and then lastly, we'll see what happens in 2023. So, AirPods Max, and that's for today's episode of Technoid. Now guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit the like button. If you disliked the video, you can hit the dislike button. That helps circulate my videos as well. As always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I will see you all in the next episode. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Take care, stay safe, have a good day, and peace!